Hey guys, bringing you another video. Now welcome to another dev update video. This is all about the items, and obviously I have covered this a little bit, but I always like, and I think it is worth doing, hearing what the devs themselves are thinking, giving, they'll give their thoughts, they'll give like the reasonings to why it's all happening. We did a video a week or whatever ago just going over all the new items, and some of them were interesting, some of them were a bit like, really? But here we should get a bit of a better understanding. Let me know what you think of the new items, obviously, in the comments. Do throw a like on the video if you enjoy it. But let's get into it. So, it is a Riot end step. I'm going to be honest, never really heard any of him before. And then also, he'll be covering the item power budgets and AP itemization. And then Riot Rose T, is that how you say that? We'll take over to talk about support items specifically. So, item power budgets. We've discussed mythic items in a previous devs article, so I'll only cover them briefly here. Since mythic items were added to League, we've been unhappy with how items ended up being a larger percentage of the overall power budget than desired, and overrode champion kits to an extreme degree, which is very true. Again, I've moaned about that probably for the last 2 years since mythic items came into the game. A lot of the time you weren't getting beat by a champion, you were getting hilariously beat by an item. And obviously, yeah, like, you needed a champion to be able to use the item. So a lot of it was mobility. If a champion had mobility to then kill you with an item, then voila. So it's really nice that mythics are going away. And, it's fine for Riot to try these things. Some people, I think, get a bit confused. It's fine to try things, but it's bad when a developer holds on to bad ideas too much. Because that's what kills a game, is if the players hate an idea, but the developers just are saying, nope, that is the game now. That's when that friction starts to build and something's going to give. And a lot of the time what gives is players quit. So, and hilariously, probably players have quit, and that's probably why they're stopping mythics. But anyway, so we're looking to go back on this to allow the core gameplay of League to revolve around fulfilling champion fantasies. This is important because champions are a richer, more compelling, and more immersive way to deliver gameplay fantasies and experience than items are, which is very true. Again, your champion should be the primary thing. League needs to support players who want to attach to specific characters or gameplay fantasies rather than systemic ones from items. Champion fantasies can be much richer and more compelling than items due to the much larger degree of difference in theme, playstyle, and feel than items do. And again, that's the thing, like, remember, like, you can be in top lane, and you're going to have two champions build the exact same build. Very common that actually happens. So the differentiation is the champions there. It's always the champions, Not it shouldn't be the items. So League's roster offers a diverse set of different champion fantasies, and not every champion is for everyone. So it's important to us that we support the existing champion fantasies for everyone who wants to opt into that experience. Hello, Iceborne Gauntlet. So across the board, what we're going to do here, we're going to go there. So across the board, we're reducing the power of items to target relatively close to their power level before the mythic system was introduced. Previously, we limited systematic creep of non-champion power through things like the 12.10 durability update, which again, Riot didn't want to do that, or the 13.20 rune nerfs. But we're looking to address one of the primary sources of excessive snowballing through items, and I would also say excessive damage. Where are we? So items are the primary way that you translate gold into power. And as items have grown more powerful over time, they have made gold worth more than it was in older versions of the game. True. Very true. There was a time, just to make it very clear, that support mains, and I'm not saying this was good, but I'm just saying it shows you how the game has changed. It's very common nowadays for a support by a half-an-hour game. They've got 4 items, I'd say, for an average support. People may forget, or you may not have played, about, 8 years ago maybe, the support meta, they never finished an item. They literally got no gold, and they literally only could buy wards. That's it. That's all they did. So it's better in some aspects. Like, it wasn't the most fulfilling experience of support mains back then. But yeah, gold nowadays equals easy power rather than, you could say, earned power sometimes. So yeah, at the same time, we've made it easier for you to access more gold by adding things like turret plates and treasure hunter in your rune, which is true. Some systemic adjustments to the values of different objectives and mechanics are fine, but we believe that the current value of gold has been pushed too high, which has led to excessive snowballing through gold leads, primary from kill gold and tower gold. I definitely would agree with tower gold, and again, this is the whole, like, you know, war against split pushing, or, you know, just default split pushing, is if you get a one-on-one kill in a matchup, I am fine with that person then leading to an advantage. You know, you've outplayed the enemy, you've beat them, they're dead, so you should get advantage. I don't like, and again, it's where people are going to differ, if you're playing Scion top playing with Demolish, you're so tanky that, and you know, you've got a big W shield, you walk up, you wait for Demolish, bang, you get the tower. That's not earned gold. You know, that Demolish proc to get a tower play every time, like, that just to me isn't earned. You're not outplaying anybody to do that. Like, there's no skill involved in that. You're just getting such an easy access to gold constantly. That's not great. So it's good that they are, well, kill gold, they want to calm down, which I guess fair enough, but also tower. I'm happy that they've said that as well. So, of course, we understand some of you may have concerns about this. Powerful items feel good to buy, and part of the appeal of the Mythic system was concentrating power into singular items that could be more satisfying. With these changes, we're looking to consolidate item power into simple, satisfying effects rather than having more broad items that do multiple different things simultaneously. For example, we're moving Liandry's back into being a high uptime caster item, where it is more clearly at its best when the user is dealing damage to targets over a long period of time. This is in contrast to the new item, Storm Surge, which is the opposite. It is designed to synergize with gameplay patterns that concentrate their burst into a narrow window, which is cool. Hello, Leandres. So AP itemization, obviously a very heavily talked about thing. For a long time, mages have been, you could say, ignored, and then Riot eventually came out and said, okay, we know mages suck, that it doesn't feel great to play a mage in solo queue right now. You'll get the biggest update of the item changes are going to go to AP mages. And that is true. The biggest update has been for AP mages. So speaking of Leandres and Storm Surge, AP itemization and mage items in particular have been something you've been asking for some time now, and it is something we've wanted to revisit meaningfully. Overall, mages haven't been happy with their items, and recently the AP system as a whole has been less exciting than other item systems, which is very true. As such, we've identified two key areas we believe will improve the AP system, particularly for mages. So locked slots and pattern binding. Note that this update specifically targets mages and to a lesser extent AP assassins, and it is not intended to address AP fighters. So AP fighters don't really benefit, I guess. But mainly AP mages and a little bit of AP assassin. Cool. So, locked slots. I presume locked slots means, like, stuff you just have to buy no matter what, maybe? So, you might be saying, Ensed, what are you talking about? What are locked slots? When we say locked slots, it means the slots in a build that are bound to the entire class. You must buy this item or buy from this set of items. In the past, this is things being like Trinity Force for light fighters or Infinity Edge for marksmen. Over time, we've generally done one of two things to solve this. Either add competitive alternate items so that even if the slot is locked, there are some other options for you to choose between. So, like, for example, the Infinity Edge, well, there's now Navori Quick Blades. So you have that choice. It's the same thing, slightly different, but you only can buy one. So for that locked slot, yes, you need a heightened crit item that empowers your crits, or you have two choices for that now, not just one. I'd say, yeah, AP definitely has this. You know, Death Cap is probably one of the biggest examples. Zonya's is also a pretty big example. So we'll see if they do anything about that. And by the way, I would say, I don't mind locked slots. I don't care if I have to buy a Zonya's every game. You know, I do. The damage in League is too high for mages to actively survive, so you have to buy Zonya's. Like, I think that's just the way to more think about it, but yeah. So, so there are options you can choose from so yeah, give more options or remove the locked nature by making the class less dependent on that item's output. For example, you know, if you, let's just use the crit example again. Oh, every AD has to buy a crit steroid item, Infinity Edge and Navori Quickblade. Well, if we just gave every AD carry, and by the way, they've not done this, but if we gave every AD carry a crit heightened thing passively, then you no longer have to buy Infinity Edge or Quickblades. That's the kind of thing. Like, you can just do it in other ways. So this time around, we had a hard look at AP champions, and for them, Rabadon's Deathcap and Void Staff have been lock slots since the dawn of League. True. On top of that, mages have also had an additional lock slot for their mana item. True. So yeah, arguably three lock slots for any mage is just needed. And obviously, we're not ever counting, but every champion practically has the same boots as well. Like, every champion, apart from like Cassiopeia, is buying boots. And Yumi, I guess. So, the Mythic system improved this in a few ways for mages by adding some more competition among the mana items. So yeah, are you going to buy Everfrost, Liandry, or Ludens? So, you know, you did have choice. Which meant that not every mage had to have the same first item, or I guess even the shieldy anti-damage one as well. Nobody bought that one, but yeah. We're preserving that structure to the newly demythicized system and intentionally changing these mana item options to be more pattern-bound rather than output-bound. We'll dive into these in a bit. We also want to try the same strategy for Void Staff, so we're introducing Crypt Bloom as an alternative percentage penetration item for mages and other AP champs. So presumably, you know, Void Staff and Crypt Bloom will be in the same locked slot, so you can buy one of them, but you can't buy both, is the type of thing. So naturally, the next question, and they even asked themselves, is what about Deathcap? I think Deathcap they can't do anything about, like, and I'm okay with that. Like, it's a late game. It should be, well, it's either hilariously a early game massive snowball item. So if, like, you buy your first item and you're doing insanely well, buy Deathcap second. It's crazy if you can do that. But because most of the time you can't and you need to get cheaper components to build your second item, you wait for Deathcap for maybe even fifth item. But yeah. So we tried multiple alternatives to it and quickly found that even when we made fun and powerful alternatives, players generally preferred buying Deathcap anyway due to the simplicity and fantasy of an AP multiplier. So while in theory there might be some genuinely great item that works in this space, for now we're focusing on creating a viable Void Staff alternative and leaving Rabadons as a big, splashy, iconic fantasy AP item, even if it does come as the cost of a locked slot. I'm okay with that. That's fine. Pattern binding. So again, we're about halfway through the article, by the way, just to give you guys a bit of a clue. And again, I love this. Again, as you all know, I did a game dev degree. I love game design. I was going to be a game designer, and then this whole content creating thing kind of went nuts. So I did this instead. But I still love the world of this. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, like, the technical aspects of why they're making the decisions, and it kind of is backing up what they're doing. I love this. So before we get started here, let's quickly go over the difference between pattern bound and output bound. When we use these terms, what we mean is in the item system is that the item that's pattern bound enhances how a champion accomplishes their goals throughout the game. An output bound item instead supports these goals directly. Many mythics like Everfrost replaced or subverted intended gameplay on champion kits. For example, Ari using Everfrost to guarantee charm hits, which made them output-bound items that shortcut the intended champion pattern. So yeah, like Ari to land her charm should be a skillful thing. Do you land it or not? But Everfrost guaranteed a hit when you just pressed Everfrost, you rooted your target in place, then you used your charm. It made it easier for that champion to do an intended skillful gameplay mechanic, and items shouldn't be doing that. That's the point. So I like that. It's a good explanation. So each item, system in League serves a set of users, and the broader pool of users is the broader the system outputs need to be. These are two ways to broaden a system: by having more specialized items to fill out the specific needs of the users, binding the item to a particular champion patterns, or by making several items sufficiently broad that they can be take on most or all of the users. Biggest example, Doran's items. You know, very simple, but who uses Doran's blade? Well, AD carries uses Doran's blade. Okay. AD fighters use Doran's Blade, okay. Some other champions also use Doran's Blade. And the same for Doran's Shield. A bunch of champions use Doran's Shield. Their fantasy isn't set to just AD carries like some items are. Other champions can use them. So that's the point. They are just very broad. They give health, they give, you know, a bit of damage and a little bit of healing. Well, there's a lot of champions in League that like that. The same for Doran's Ring. Gives a bit of ability power, a bit of mana regen. A bunch of champions like that. Mages like that. AP fighters might even like that. AP assassins might even like that for the early game. That's the point. They're very broad, so a lot of champions can use them. You don't need every item to be specialist. So, there are two ways to broaden a system by having a more special... I think we did that, didn't we? Yeah. Okay, so the AP system in League serves a considerable percentage of the champion roster, but over time we've generally used the latter option, making items more broad and letting anyone in the AP system buy them, rather than adding new specialized items to cover specific sections of the user pool. I'd agree to that. There's a lot of like AP mage items you'll see quite often on AP fighters or AP assassins. They weren't just AP mage items. And I think that would be cool to have some specific mage items. You know, you'll see, you know, Vladimir, I guess, may not be the best example because he is kind of an AP mage, but he also isn't. He's kind of AP mage fighter, but he uses mostly just mage items that don't have mana. But maybe there should be more specific ones that he can't use or shouldn't use. But yeah, so from now on, we should move the AP system towards the second option, where items are more pattern-bound rather than generic. Ooh, that's good. That way, we can ensure that the items we add to the system feel particularly synergistic, Jesus Christ, for some champions to create more diversity among AP builds. I like that. That sounds good. A good example of this is Shadow Flame, the original version, with more generic stats, including health and some flat penetration, is functional for almost every damage-focused champion in the AP system. True. The new system is pretty accessible, but it's riskier since it doesn't offer any health. So suddenly a Vladimir who's not gaining AP also from health items, he may skip this item. It's not as specialist, or not as, because it's not so broad, it's not as good for him. It's less most potent for poking enemies at high health, and has a specific bonus for damage over time and pet effects, making it bound to particular patterns in a few different ways. This will let different champions specifically feel good about their pattern synergy with his item, and similar things are true for a few other items that they've added or reworked. Cool. So overall, our goals of the AP system would primarily to ensure that AP champions, especially mages, feel better about having more real choices in the system, and more items that feel particularly good for their champion, so that item power spikes feel more meaningful to you. But that's enough talk about magical hats and staves. Now it's time to cross over. So I will also say, like, I don't know if anybody else would massively agree, but as I play a lot of different champions, you know, and I hope people somewhat respect that. Like, if I'm saying something like, for example, if I was playing Yasuo and I get my Kraken Slayer, which, you know, in old system isn't a myth. Oh, no, it is a mythic. No, it's not a mythic. It got demoted. It used to be mythic. I would say a Yasuo with Kraken Slayer feels much stronger than a Nivea with Leandri. You know? Like, mage items just haven't felt that special. And, you know, even they get outclassed by non-mythic items. So I think hopefully the mage update would help that. Which I think it will, which is good. Okay, so support items. So they are doing an interesting thing with the support item. If you don't know, from my knowledge, is every support, I think, is starting with the same quest item. And then you choose the upgrade path after the initial quest, I believe. I don't know why they're doing this, but yeah. So support is an integral role for every team. Where would we be without a Leona setting up an engage for us, or our Lulu saving our butts when we lock in Vayne? While support has been a strong and high levels of play, for the average player, support has been low agency and at times low appeal. I would say, and I don't know if they're going to mention it here, with the damage focus of League being so goddamn high over the last few years, like the last 2 years since Mythic items, damage has been way too high in League of Legends. You know, most people would agree to that. support has become less of a thing in solo queue. And if you look in your average solo queue, if you look in your match history and look at the average support, a lot of people playing just damage supports nowadays because it feels better. You know, you're helping the damage. And, you know, yes, playing Lulu, you're enabling the AD carry to do damage, sure. But that's not as much damage as if you locked in Xerath or Vel'Koz or Brand and you're just doing raw damage yourself. And again, especially for solo queue. You're not duo, you don't have that synergy, and you're protecting your Vayne duo that you're on comms with. Pure solo players, it's more often than not better just to play a damage dealer yourself in support. And again, if the damage of the game doesn't primarily go down in the refocus of items, I don't know if that's ever going to change. But anyway, so with this round of change, we're focusing on increasing the satisfaction and creating unique power for the class without disrupting the role's identity. To do this, looked at the support quest items, which will allow us to introduce power across all support champions, especially in the early to mid game, without creating items that would get poached by other roles, which is very true. You have to be careful of that. So, the support exclusive upgrades. So, to help us achieve this goal, we've created 5 upgrade options after completing your support quest, which can help support players express their playstyles and reach a power spike towards the end of laning phase, along with the first legendary item purchase. The only difference among the upgrades is the unique passive they carry. For instance, Solstice Slay allows you to ride with an ally that you fight side by side with and buff them. We love how versatile this item is, as it can be used by multiple classes and in both engage and disengage solutions. Another item, Dreammaker, is inspired by whimsical Bandor City vibe and lets you bless an ally by sending sweet dream bubbles to them. We work closely with our game analysis team and designers to extensively test each upgrade to ensure no support champion is left out of the system. That's actually quite a big thing. So in testing, we've also seen that usually a champion will have 1 or 2 upgrade options that cover most of their games, and maybe another one that is situationally good. We purposely kept the combat stats the same to allow maximum flexibility, so that you only need to choose your upgrade based on the game state or playstyle needs. All the stats are the same, so it's just whatever use you want. You know, do you want the slay? Do you want the bubbles? Whatever, like, just that's the difference, which I think is good. That being said, we also had to make sure that the system wasn't too complicated, so the upgrades are designed around traditional class identities and combat support playstyles, with Bloodsong to potentially allow an even wider champion pool. So, like, for example, the whimsical bubble one is quite enchanter supportery, so most enchanter supports might like that. Oh, the slay that lets you just yeet into the middle, oh, that's quite probably good for tank engage supports. There's a logic to each of them, and mostly you'd want the one that goes to your logic. Makes sense. So the quest itself, we considered a few themes for the quest line, and the team was very excited about the idea of exploring the Rune Terra map and eventually obtaining a local treasure. A treasure that's tied to a specific region. So because as you progress throughout the quest, you are also mindfully realizing the choice for this game. We also wanted to address a few players' pain points when looking at quest items. For instance, we've seen a big variance in quest completion time due to several reasons, or when you complete your gold quest, it may not feel that rewarding. We also know it can be frustrating to try and last hit minions when your carries already have a strong wave clear at 20 minutes. These are some of the issues we wanted to address. So yeah, they're basically saying, okay, I will just say, this paragraph is more for the very not good players, which you again, when you're doing game design, you have to account for the best players and the worst. You have to. And the worst players, even if they're playing an enchanter, their support quest was to primarily do damage to the opponent, you know, like attack them. And you earn a bit of gold for attacking them for your quest item and everything like that. A lot of the really worst players didn't do it. They just didn't. They didn't want to put the risk on themselves. They didn't walk forward. They didn't get those auto attacks in. So they would be so late in completing the support quest, it feels irrelevant. You know, they've already got their first legendary item. They may be even halfway on to the second one, and finally they complete their quest. Or the same goes, dude, let me last hit this minion, and you're in low rating, and they don't get that you need to do that, and they just not letting you do it, you know? Or when you're actively fighting your own AD carry for doing it, you end up pushing the wave because the AD carry is constantly auto-attacking it and not knowing what you're trying to do, and then your lane positioning is bad. I can see it, you know. You've got to design it for all players, so I could get that. So, to avoid confusion around the upgrade model, we have identified being able to unify how support gains gold as the win condition for this update. This was challenging because there are currently 4 starter items serving AP versus AD, melee versus ranged. We also noticed even with the different choices, once you locked in a champion, there was no meaningful choice around which items you take. Yeah, you just take the one that you always did. So we decided to go with the direction of merging quests and began to work through balancing changes within this decision's complexity, budgets, and constraints. We experimented with a lot of different solutions, including using CC or high amounts of siege minion gold to help melee champions keep up with the natural advantage ranged champions have, using adaptive force to accommodate different damage types, and even reducing the starter items price and allowing support players to afford basic items of their choice, etc. But they all had various problems regarding player experience, balancing levers or complexity, mindshare and learning costs for players, and all that stuff. So although what we landed on requires some getting used to, we're confident that it adds the right amount of depth by letting you switch between poking, trading, and pushing. And more importantly, support can reach a more consistent power spike when picking up the upgrade. We hope you enjoy exploring the upgrades, and the merged quests feel better for you support mains out there, as well as anyone looking to try support for the first time. We also hope you enjoy the updates to the overall item system we've made for all classes. Let me know what you think. Have fun on the Rift. So yeah, they're trying to say, what I'm getting from this article is we have tried a lot of stuff. We've tested a lot of stuff. We know the old system was bad. We've done a lot of research. This is the best we could land on. And that's the thing. It's the best they can land on. I know a lot of people have had some problems with some of the AP items, specifically, you could say the AP collector version. There has been use cases of, especially like a Karthus ulting, and he ults somebody, it does the tick damage with the item, and they die. But what I would counter to that to some people, and you know, these probably items are going to get toned down, which is good. We haven't had those items in AP. That's the thing. Like, a lot of AD items and tank items, Heartsteel, like, they've been crazy OP. Like, we've all probably, you know, there's been use cases in the last year or two that there's been really OP items. Not many of those, if any, have been ability power-centric items. They just haven't. Especially mage items, they really haven't been OP. So all of these crazy items, you know, Collector is still in the game. Hullbreaker is still in the game. Heartsteel is still in the game. They're not AP items. So if AP has 1 or 2 of these, you know, crazy items as well, isn't that just fair? I don't know. Like, we haven't had access to them playing a mage. But anyway, that's going to be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I love doing these explanations. I love getting the understanding to what Riot is saying. Let me know what you think, though, by liking the video, commenting down below. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Call down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace. Restore our glory to live forever. Bring down the dark regime. I know how to unleash eternal power. Lead us to order.